whopping 7.8 million views. I made this web shooter using pretty simple materials like paper, foam, popsicle sticks, magnets, and other cheap materials that are pretty easy to find. Also, this is actually pretty easy to keep watching. Real quick, before that though, we have a sponsor for this video. Guys, I'm super excited that Mech Arena is sponsoring this video. Seriously, I'm not kidding. I'm actually a huge fan of this game, and let me show you why. Mech Arena is a new third-person mech shooter where you can get into a mech and battle it out with other online players globally in a variety of different fast-paced game modes. As soon as you pick up this game, you'll immediately notice how balanced and competitive it is. I mean, for real, skill actually matters in this game. Now, there's tons of different mechs to unlock and upgrade. Each mech has unique abilities and can be customized with dozens of different weapons to match your playstyle. I've been playing this game a lot, so let me show you one of my favorite mechs, which is Killshot. I like this mech because it has a super aggressive playstyle. It has an ability called Melee Dash, which allows you to get up close and personal to deal some serious damage. Because Killshot is so good at doing damage, he's not very good at surviving. But hey, that's where skill really matters. Mech Arena is constantly updating the game with tons of fresh new content, and they've got a great login rewards program happening right now, so there's never been a better time to get started. It's completely free to play on both Android and iOS, and if you use my link in the description or scan my QR code, you'll get 1 mil-spec skin, 500 A coins, and 70,000 credits to help kickstart your game. Also, feel free to add me as a friend and we can play some matches together. To get started, I made a wristband out of some brown craft foam. My wrist is pretty small, so you might want to make yours longer than 7 inches if your wrist is larger. A good rule of thumb is just make sure you leave about a ½ inch gap right there because we'll be gluing some stuff underneath later. Next, I'm going to add a trim to the edge of the craft foam using 1½ inch fabric elastic. But before I can do that though, I just need to paint the fabric, so I mixed up some beige, white, green, and silver acrylic paint until I was happy with the color. Once the paint dried, I contact cemented the fabric to the foam, and as you can see here, I used some painter's tape to make it easier to apply on the contact cement, like this. You really want to make sure that you take your time when you place down the fabric because you only get one shot at this. Once you place it down, that's it. The contact cement is super sticky and permanent, so just try to go slow and steady, and that'll help you get an even trim along the edge. After that, just make sure you put some super glue on the edge of the fabric to make sure nothing frays. And now would be a good time to attach on some Velcro. As you can see, I already cut out a spot for the Velcro in advance, so you might want to do the same as well. Now we're going to go ahead and make the barrel of the web shooter. So for that, I'm going to start with a piece of cereal box cardboard, and I'm going to use a hole puncher to make this very tiny little ring. Then I rolled up a small paper tube and cut out a notch right at the center so that a popsicle stick could slide in and out like this. And I covered the whole paper tube in super glue to harden it. These two pieces both have the exact same outer and inner diameter as each other and get glued together like this. This spring right here is what's going to propel the string out of the web shooter. I'm going to use this spring to roll up a paper tube that has an inner diameter that is slightly larger than the spring's outer diameter so that the spring can slide in and out of the tube freely. And again, I coated the whole tube in super glue. This piece that I'm holding right here is one that you can find on the template, and so you can cut that out and use it as a stencil for the little cutout pattern that's on the barrel. After that's all been traced out, you want to make sure you use a super sharp blade on this if you want the cutout to be precise. Once I was happy with that, I went ahead and super glued these two parts together like this. Moving on, I cut out a small square out of a popsicle stick, and then I carved out 2 little notches in the popsicle stick, as well as a tiny hole right there, and here's what it should look like. After that whole thing got covered in super glue, I fed this nylon fishing line through the hole and then tied a loop for my finger, securing the loop with super glue. And the idea here is that when I want to shoot the web shooter, I just need to pull on the string and the web shooter will shoot. And you'll see this whole thing in action later on, of course. So I used a small rubber band to attach the popsicle stick to the barrel, and that makes for a simple little release mechanism like this, as you can see. Alright, now I'm going to take a thin bamboo skewer and roll a strip of paper around it. What we're doing right here is making a bullet for the web shooter, which is basically like a little stick that's going to fly forward and carry all of the string along with it. Here I just cut out a little notch in the stick, and that notch is going to get caught on the popsicle stick release mechanism that we made prior to this. At this point, I mixed up a very small amount of 5-minute epoxy, and I'm going to use that to attach on this little 5x3 magnet on the side which is closest to the notch. And just for good measure, I super glued a small strip of paper around there like that. On the other end of the stick, I wrapped a thin strip of paper until there was enough surface area to where I could glue on this 8x5 magnet, again using 5-minute epoxy. After that dried, I just simply super glued the spring to the bullet. And now you just take another 5x3 magnet, figure out the orientation of it, and then you can attach a string to that magnet using more 5-minute epoxy. Alright, now I can show you a demo of how the web shooter shoots. So first, you insert the bullet into the barrel while the popsicle stick is lowered down, and then release the popsicle stick to lock in the bullet. After that, you attach the string to the back of the bullet. Then to fire, just tug on the string and the bullet will blast out, dragging all of the string along with it. Once you're happy with the release mechanism, now would be a good time. The barrel is going to get glued onto the web shooter right there, but before I do that though, I'm just going to cut out a little rectangle in the foam. Basically, I'm just making a little slot that's going to allow the popsicle stick to slide in and out of the barrel, as shown here. Also, I just glued on some popsicle sticks here so that I had a level surface to glue the barrel onto. It really helps if you have one of these needle squeeze bottles because it allows you to get kind of in tight in those hard to reach areas, but it's totally fine if you don't have one. This next piece is super important because it prevents the popsicle stick inside from being pulled all the way out, which would potentially make the rubber band slip off. Notice here that when you insert the bullet into the barrel, it sticks out the back there. Now that actually makes it kind of difficult to reload because you aren't able to place your thumb on the back of the barrel. So I found a pretty simple solution to that, which is to use the plastic cap from an empty super glue bottle. And this works perfectly because it's super thin. It leaves enough clearance for the web cartridge to slide over it, but at the same time it's very strong, so it's not going to crumple when you apply pressure on it. And see, now I can reload it over and over again very easily, which is exactly what I want. On the template, you'll find a piece that looks like this, which you can transfer onto poster board. And notice this line right here and right here, I've went ahead and scored those on the back of the poster board with my knife. Same thing here, I scored those lines on the back, and doing this will just make it easier to fold later. After that, I all the way out, which will squeeze bottles in and out of the barrel, as shown here. Also, I just glued on some popsicle sticks here so that I had a level surface to glue the barrel onto. It really helps if you have one of these needle squeeze bottles because it allows you to get kind of in tight in those hard to reach areas, but it's totally fine if you don't have one. This next piece is super important because it prevents the popsicle stick inside from being pulled all the way out, which would potentially make the rubber band slip off. Notice here that when you insert the bullet into the barrel, it sticks out the back there. Now that actually makes it kind of difficult to reload because you aren't able to place your thumb on the back of the barrel. So I found a pretty simple solution to that, which is to use the plastic cap from an empty super glue bottle. And this works perfectly because it's super thin. It leaves enough clearance for the web cartridge to slide over it, but at the same time it's very strong, so it's not going to crumple when you apply pressure on it. And see, now I can reload it over and over again very easily, which is exactly what I want. On the template, you'll find a piece that looks like this, which you can transfer onto poster board. And notice this line right here and right here, I've went ahead and scored those on the back of the poster board with my knife. Same thing here, I scored those lines on the back, and doing this will just make it easier to fold later. After that, I took some craft foam and contact cemented the poster board on top of the foam. I went ahead and cut that out, and then after that I flipped it over and scored the foam the exact same way I scored the poster board. And again, what this will do is just simply make it easier to crease the foam and the poster board so that we can shape it like this. From here, there's 4 little tabs on each corner that need to get cut out, and of course, this is all marked out on the template for you. After the tabs have been cut out, you want to super glue the corners in an offset position just like I've done here. Here's a little side-by-side comparison so you can see how they resemble, and go ahead and do that for all 4 corners, of course. Now because we offset the corners, the bottom of this piece is no longer level, so to level it out I'm just going to add some craft foam to the corner like that, and then slice off the excess foam until the surface is completely flat. And I did this for all 4 corners. Then I cut up little bits of this 1/8 inch wooden dowel and used that to make some fake hardware. After that, I painted this with a Rust-Oleum gloss black and then a Tamiya gloss clear coat. I gave this paint some time to dry, and then after that I glued the black piece to the web shooter using contact cement and super glue. Alright, now it's time to make those little gold and red detail pieces you see right there. So what you can do for that is wrap some paper around a toothpick, spiraling the paper downwards like this, and then just harden the paper with super glue, give it a moment to dry, and then you can sand it down until you have a nice smooth dome shape. Do this twice so that you can glue one on each side of this paper tube right here. And if you want, you can sand it down even more to get a more refined shape. For paint, I did a few coats of filler primer, sanding in between each coat with a high grit sandpaper. Then I used a Tamiya Gold followed by a Tamiya Gloss Clear. While that was drying, I made this very simple black piece that goes together with the gold piece like this. And that whole thing gets glued onto the web shooter right there. I made this red piece the exact same way I made the gold piece, except this one is a little bit larger. And on the tip of that red piece, there's a tiny black ring which I made out of poster board. For the little wiring right there, I cut up the cable of this old USB mouse that I had laying around, and that worked perfectly. For the web cartridges, I found a pretty cheap and easy way to do them using some Sharpies. So if you have a bunch of old Sharpies laying around, then you're in luck for this one. But if not, they're pretty cheap and you can get these pretty much anywhere. So I make a mark 1.5 inches away from the opening of the tube and then cut that down with a box cutter. Then using the exact same method I showed you before, I made this dome piece and glued that to the end of the Sharpie tube right there. After that, I sanded these 2 plastic parts, starting with some low grit sandpaper and then slowly moving up to a finer grit sandpaper. This will just make the surface a little bit more suitable for paint. As you can see, there's a little ridge right there, and that makes it so that it can snap into the tube like that, which is super convenient because we're going to use that to make the web cartridge detachable. So I just trimmed that black piece down a bit